Max, welcome. We are live on Scaling Europe. Why don't you just, to kick off, give us a quick introduction to who you are and what you are building.
Cool. Hi there. I'm Max, the founder of Azoma. I spent 6 years at Amazon working in search before I founded Azoma, and we're helping some of the largest brands optimize for AI search. So we're helping the likes of Zappos, Canadian Tire, Mars, the M&Ms, all of those good folks get mentioned more in AI search like ChatGPT, Amazon Rufus, and Plexi.
Can you give us a bit of background? Why has AI changed search and why has this now become an opportunity?
At least on the customer side, maybe more in the tech and VC side, people still don't appreciate how much of a transformation this is. As I said, when I was working at Amazon, what we would used to do would be to rank keywords based on a bunch of signals. So you would type in peanut butter chocolate or whatever it be, and we would work out how to list the products based on sales velocity, based on reviews, etc., like dirty signals. What we have when you're using a large language model or a reasoning model is a totally different technology. First of all, these models are trained on all world knowledge, as you'll appreciate, and then they have memory and an understanding of the user and their specific needs and preferences as well. So now when a prompt goes in, and typically this is a longer prompt because people are talking conversationally now, so there's even more data in the prompt, that feeds into the world knowledge, and also then the AI will think about the individual user as well and give a specific generated response. So it's an entirely different tech stack to how search used to be done on Google, the PageRank algorithm, on Amazon, the A9 algorithm, which I briefly explained, and therefore requires an entirely new approach for brands to surface and be recommended.
And how quickly or how well do you think brands are adapting to this change?
Well, as I said, I'm super grateful to be working with some really forward-thinking brands. So there's definitely in that user adoption curve, there's some on the cutting edge, and we're partnering with them right now, and we're driving fantastic results. But it's that kind of curve, right? So you'll see 70-80% of people who will be late adopters, late movers, don't really want to think about new technology until they absolutely have to, don't want to change the way they're working, and then perhaps 30% are in those early innovators or early adopter modes. And for those people now, we're seeing great rewards of moving fast and optimizing for the right algorithms.
So right now, is there a real opportunity for people to adopt early and get a competitive advantage over their competitors?
Yes, but I think if we were talking in 6 months, then no. So I think there has been an early mover advantage, and we've certainly seen brands reap the reward of this. We've been doing this 3 years, right? So I think we will soon get to the point where this becomes the new normal, and I would imagine that's 6 months' time. So like that window is narrowing, and I think there's lots of narrative about AI search around now, and that tells you that we're getting beyond that early adopter phase.
Yeah, that's really interesting. 6 months is a short timeline, but as you said, you've been building this space for a number of years.
Yeah.
How have you seen it change over the last 3 years?
How has it changed? When we founded the business, so me and my co-founder met on Entrepreneur First, and we met in 2022, pre-ChatGPT. And as soon as we saw ChatGPT, he's a postdoc and PhD in AI. As I said, I had a background in Amazon at search. We were like, this is the future. This is how people are going to discover products. That was a very controversial belief in 22. And we then went on Techstars in 23, where eBay Ventures were the LP. And we would be sitting in the eBay offices out in SF in the Bay. And they were telling us, yeah, you're never going to have LLM-based search in the marketplaces because it will cannibalize the ads business, and the ads business is too important. And this was senior VPs at eBay saying this is not going to happen. So it was a pretty controversial belief in 23. And we're like, no, it's a better customer experience. It will happen. And lo and behold, Amazon have Rufus, Walmart have Sparky, 60% of us are using AI engines to search. Google's now got AI overviews. Like, we've all moved into that direction. So now, to answer your question, we're at that point of mass adoption, I think. It's very obvious now that this is going to be the future, and we're thinking ahead of what happens next. And in my mind, what happens next is these agentic browsers. We've seen Perplexity Comet. I don't know if you've had to play around with that. Yeah, I think we're going to have these AI agents on the side of to start with computers, but then on our phones, which are basically running that hundreds of prompts in the background, stuff that we don't have to prompt ourselves. It will just be doing stuff in the background as we talk, as we search, helping us to discover things autonomously. And I think that will be the next phase of this AI wave, and we're definitely thinking about that at Azoma, but obviously very focused as well on current LLM adoption, which is just being rolled out.
And can you talk a little bit about a real use case, one of your clients? What kind of service are you providing and what do they get out of it?
It starts with showing the customer how they are visible in AI. So we will ping the models hundreds of thousands of times on behalf of the customer. And we've got 2 patents actually in the business. One of the patents, we will ping ChatGPT or Amazon or whoever it will be. We'll look at the response we get back and we build a predictive model that understands how people are talking about search. So the first half is we show people how their visibility is. And then the second part of it is then using those insights to generate optimized content. So Canadian Tire, who are, let's say, the Macy's of Canada, a massive retailer, I think the largest in Canada. We're doing 18,000 product listings with them every month. We've optimized for GEO. With Zappos, we're doing around 2,000. We don't just do product listings. So we have Winn-Dixie, who are a big grocer out in Florida, and we've generated for them hundreds of recipes. And as I said, these recipes are based on trending topics people are talking about to ChatGPT. So we will be picking up on the latest food trends that people are asking, how do I cook XYZ? We'll generate a recipe that gets published on the Winn-Dixie website. So then when Winn-Dixie itself will get cited, which is one of the banners that SEG owns, one of the chains that they own. And then we've increased their share of recommendations in ChatGPT and traffic from ChatGPT 5x. So
that's an amazing testimonial or client result. 5x is huge.
Yeah. I would say we can happily 5 to 7x recommendations. And in some ways, it's not early days in terms of consumers adopting this, but we're in the first innings of the GEO tool adoption from the brand. Yeah, you can drive pretty impressive results.
And what advice would you give to, say, a consumer-facing brand who has not looked at GEO at all, and maybe they're just they want to get started, they want to improve it, maybe themselves in-house first? What would you recommend are the first steps to help them with this?
Yeah. My first step would be to think about who their customers are. If their customers are Gen Z, then 93% of Gen Z, at least in the UK, are using at least 2 AI tools a week. So if you're younger, you understand the nuances between Perplexity and Claude, and you're using different ones for different use cases. If you are selling to an older demographic, and maybe you're selling retirement insurance or whatever it will be, then maybe it's less of a pressing issue. So I would first advise them to think about who is their target audience. Is that target audience using AI search? And you can tell instinctively as well as look at what data you have available. And then if their target customer is using AI search, then I would say to them it's a massive opportunity that likely if they're selling to under 40s, it's become a significant channel for that consumer. As we discussed, you've got about 6 months, I'd guess, before everyone has a GEO tool. So I would encourage them to look at it and think about it, and also think about Azoma, as we've been doing this for 3 years and driven results.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And is there, when you look at the models and the type of content that they consume or the type of things that they're looking out for, are there specific types of content, whether it's posting on Reddit, is it articles published on your own website, blogs? Are there types of things that are more likely to be picked up?
Yeah, definitely. And to give you the brief answer, the 3 things that I would encourage people to do on their own websites would be FAQs. The LLMs love an FAQ. If you can marry that FAQ with questions that customers are asking in ChatGPT, even better. But number 1, FAQs. Number 2, testimonials. We have a couple of testimonials on our website, and I've seen these in the data and also anecdotally being picked up in ChatGPT. So if you can put a testimonial from a real customer, name them, that can get surfaced in GPT. And then number 3 is tables. The AI engines love tables. Microsoft actually published a paper demonstrating how LLM performance is enhanced when using tabular format. Get those comparison tables up in the blogs or on your recipes or wherever it will be on the website. And the LLMs, at least at the moment, bias towards consuming that kind of data.
Interesting. Do you think that's going to change the way that consumer companies build their websites or build their content, that it's no longer almost like customer or consumer facing?
Yeah.
It actually just becomes content for the models.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a hot and spicy take. I really dislike it when people say this. And the reason is, in my mind, these LLMs are, and it's not just you, I hear people in the industry saying, oh, you need to design a website for the LLM, blah, 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 right? People trying to sell these LLMs are extremely intelligent, probably more intelligent than humans, and they have the mission of finding relevant information for humans and presenting it back to humans. And therefore, they want human optimized content. They don't want LLM optimized content. They don't listen to LLM.txt files. Anyone who's saying, oh, you need to, they're not using that, right? They don't care. They want human optimized content. And if you look at how it used to work on Amazon, for example, with the old keyword algorithms, what sellers would do would be to stack keywords. So they would say, I'm selling a laptop. I'm going to say laptop for men, laptop for women, laptop for work. And I'm going to put laptop for XYZ 10 times across the listing. And it's just going to be stuff with these keywords. And I'm going to hit one of these narrow keywords. Now with the LLMs, they understand context. They understand the audience. That would significantly punish you. But actually, if you describe what your product is, the benefits of it, who the audience is, and you answer the relevant questions that audience will have of it, they're going to pick it up. So LLMs want websites that are optimized for humans. They want stuff which is easily readable. They want stuff which is answering the questions humans have, which is clear who it's targeted for, and they will do the work of giving that to the person. It's not the case that you have something optimized for a human and something optimized for the LLM, and these are different. These are the same.
Got it. So you want to make sure that your content, your website is fundamentally human first.
Absolutely.
But perhaps in a structure.
Yeah, there's some like nuances, which is they can't read some Java, and if you've got flashy videos, they can't read that. And yes, I get the point, which is, yeah, like that could be amazing for a human if you build some like beautiful 3D modeling, which the LLM isn't going to read. But fundamentally, yeah, they only read text and they like tables. But if we're talking about like the pure content, they want human optimized content, right? They want it easy to read, clear who it's to, clear what the benefits are, answering the key questions. And the days of keyword stuffing and having like your keywords in white on a white background, all this kind of stuff is like very much over.
And how do you see this changing? As you mentioned, moving to like browser agents, right? Agentic commerce. Do you see? I had one of my first guests was Philip Bellament, the CEO of Zilch, the big UK fintech. They're like a payments provider, but he was talking about they power a lot of consumer payments, and he was talking about the way that agentic payments is going to, or kind of agentic checkout is going to fundamentally change the way that consumer websites are built, because you may not need like a full checkout experience. You don't need to optimize for certain things in that kind of world, or basket clicks. And I'm just curious to hear, do you see consumer websites and that whole interaction being built for humans? Like, how do you see that changing as we move towards more like browser-based agentic flows?
Again, the comparison I would bring to this is Amazon. So on Amazon, you can have a storefront, right? But it's essentially a search bar. You can have a storefront, but no customer ever visits the storefront, right? You don't search for a product and then be like, well, just check out their storefront. I can tell you from working there for 6 years, and maybe you can know as a consumer, the amount of people visiting Amazon storefronts is incredibly low. And I think that will be where we get to with ChatGPT. I think customers will search for a product, it will do a lot of research, it will give you a product, and then you won't go and check out the website. In the same way on Amazon, you don't go and check out the storefront. You'll be like, there's my list of 3 options, I can read about them, and now I'm going to pick this one, I'm going to check out in ChatGPT. So I would agree with what your previous guest was saying. I think we are going to move to that, people just checking out in LLMs, and it will just be easier. And also people have a very high trust of these LLMs, right? ChatGPT has just launched a lot of stuff in health, as you've probably seen, and people will be spilling their deepest and darkest anxieties and fears, like secret health problems, to ChatGPT, and it will be helping them. And therefore people are going to have an even higher trust of these models than they do now. And at the moment, I've seen surveys that say that people trust ChatGPT more than in-store staff when shopping. But that's going to go up as people use it more and more for all sorts of personal stuff. And then eventually people will be very comfortable just checking out in ChatGPT.
And what does this mean for consumer brands? The brands themselves become less important over time. And you see this on Amazon to an extent, is that when you do search for a product, you're not so bothered about the brand behind the product. You might look at the reviews, you might look at the product specification, you might look at the price. Do you see a world where like brand becomes less of a moat, and it's actually much more important to be like a content-driven, content-first organization where you're putting out high-quality information that people want to read and understand to help you get your products into the models?
I think you're right. I think some would argue that what you're saying about putting out high-driven content is building a brand, and it is like traditional brand building in some ways. I would argue that brand is important. The models do care about brand, and they do want you to be cited widely on Reddit and everywhere else, and Wikipedia and blah, blah, blah. It is important to build a brand and put out content. I think it maybe shifts the priorities of what it means to do brand building, but I think it still is important.
Got it. Okay. It's really interesting because it's always, you have to build a brand, you have to build the content. You almost have to act as if nothing is changing to an extent, while also realizing that everything is changing, that these models and GEO is fundamentally changing the way that consumers are going to find and source your business. So I think it's like a really interesting world to be building in right now. Like, I want to hear, what are your priorities? We talked about agentic browsers.
Yeah.
Like, where do you see yourself focusing on as we move to mass adoption?
In terms of our product roadmap, you're saying?
Yeah, like where are you going to be focused, either product or also geographically?
We've had a global view from the outset, so we've got big customers in Canada, in the US, in the UK. On my team are people that speak Spanish, Portuguese, French. I may be missing some. So we're a team of 20 now, so we have multiple languages and we have customers across. I'd say we haven't really focused as much on like mainland Europe, just because of the maybe cultural differences in terms of adopting technology. It's a lot easier in the States, and then maybe on a second order degree, Canada and the UK. So that will continue to do that in terms of geography. In terms of product, I mean, we see what's happening over the horizon. I think if I take a long-term answer to your question, I think there's two waves yet to come. I think there's the agentic browser and mobile experience that the Sam Altmans of the world are talking about, like having this agent that helps you in every aspect of your life, and we'll delegate a lot of shopping to them. So stuff like buying spare freezer parts and fixing a light bulb. You don't want to know, you don't care, you just want the cheapest and you want something that fits, and you'll just give it to them to find the products for you. And then I think the next wave will be AI infused products. So we'll have mirrors in our house which are recommending which skincare to buy, and our fridges will be saying, oh, if you order XYZ ingredient, you can cook your favorite meal. Do you want me to place that order for you so you can do it tonight? And maybe this is like a 10-year horizon. AI-infused applications everywhere, as well as having like our own agent that maybe come in 2-3 years. And so I think we've done very well on this wave of the LLMs on ChatGPT and non-marketplaces. And yeah, we're thinking of the horizon as well. We want to help our customers win in these two waves that are coming, and probably more that I can't even imagine yet.
Yeah, amazing. And look, I'm conscious of running out of time. I want to ask you, you've been building this space for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that I really like about you and your co-founder's background is that you have this amazing kind of like founder market fit, founder product fit. You coming from Amazon, your co-founder being incredibly technical in AI. I just wanted to get your thoughts, get your takes on like what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are maybe earlier on than you or thinking about taking the leap? What advice would you give somebody thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or building in the AI space?
I remember when I was going to quit my job, I called my late grandpa and I said to him, I've been working 6 years in Amazon. I really want to do this. What's your perspective, having lived 80 years? And he said to me, go do it. Worst case, you'll find another job in a few years, but at least you've tried. So it was the best advice I've had and the best decision I've done to try. And I don't think you can do something part-time. Like my first business I did when I was like 16. So I've always had an entrepreneurial streak, but I was trying to manage at Amazon, doing projects in the evenings at the weekends. But then I also managed a large team at Amazon. It was a full-on job, 8 to 7 kind of job. Like it was a full-on job, and therefore trying to do a few hours of an idea on the weekends or in the evenings just wouldn't work. You need to commit yourself fully if you want to have a big outcome. And then the second piece, I think, is that founder market fit. I talk to a lot of people who are saying, oh, I want to build X for Y in Z industry, and what's my thoughts? And my thoughts are, there's so much you're going to be learning about your customers and the technology and the pricing and raising, and there's so many variables that you're going to have to learn, and it's hard. That if you're also going into an industry where you don't know anything and you're also trying to learn the industry, you don't have any connections. Our first customers were all of my friends who just had worked at Amazon, had left to lead the Amazon or the e-commerce of major brands. I had 10 or so people that I knew over 6 years who'd done that, and they were my first customers, and they were a WhatsApp away. And they can give you very honest feedback, and they will do pilots with you. And if you don't know the industry you're selling in, I think my advice would be go and work in that industry for a year or two in some other company if you're really passionate about that industry, and then start, because then at least you'll know it because there'll be a lot of unknowns that you'll have to deal with, and you don't want the customers in the industry to be one of them.
Yeah, amazing. That's really good advice. Like, know the industry really well before you take that plunge. But also, I guess you mentioned, like, really, if you're going to take a swing, take the big swing and go all in on it. And it's interesting that you mentioned those early customers were people that you knew from your network and the industry that you'd already worked in. I guess it's such a huge advantage.
It's still our biggest source. 3 years on, word of mouth is our biggest source. And we get customers recommending us now to other people. And we are the opposite of a viral product, right? We are an enterprise solution. Our contracts are hundreds of thousands of pounds, and it's also like a secret. In many ways, you wouldn't want to tell your competitors that you're using this big enterprise software, but still, word of mouth is our most important one, and people move around, they move jobs, they have friends, there's conferences. I think you need to, if you don't have that, you're fighting against a tsunami, right? Is really hard if you don't have that word of mouth helping you.
Yeah, it's amazing advice. You got to build and curate that sort of early advocacy.
Yeah.
But look, Max, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining. I've loved chatting. Yeah, I'll be watching your journey, and get in touch if you ever want to come back on or talk about any news.